On Christmas Eve 1992, while all of Dayton, Ohio was immersed in twinkling lights and church bells ringing, a room on Prescott Avenue harbored a horrifying secret that no one knew about. A man lay dead on his bed, bound tightly with electrical cords, while outside the room, his killers were eating, laughing, and driving the victim's car as if nothing had happened. And that was just the opening act of a terrifying killing spree that would last 3 days, sending the entire city into a shudder of fear. 6 people dead, 2 wounded, and all because 4 teenagers wanted to find some drama for their boring lives. Welcome to the Case Files, where we bring you real cases, true crime stories analyzed in depth based on official investigation data and case files. Today, we're going back to one of the bloodiest holidays in Dayton, Ohio's history, where the warm Christmas atmosphere was replaced by indescribable horror. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous case of the 1992 Dayton Christmas Massacre, also known as the Downtown Posse Christmas Killings, a series of brutal crimes committed by a teenage gang simply because they felt life was too boring. Part 1. Background and Characters. In December 1992, downtown Dayton was overflowing with holiday spirit, with Christmas trees lit up at Courthouse Square, pop-up shops reopening in the long-closed Dayton Arcade Mall, and residents eagerly preparing for a cozy holiday break with their families. But not everyone had a home to return to, and not everyone looked forward to that. 4 young teenagers called themselves the Downtown Posse, the Downtown Gang. Marvallous Keene, 19 years old, born July 5, 1973, was the ringleader of the group. Laura Jean Taylor, 16, a runaway girl who was also Keene's girlfriend. Heather Nicole Matthews, 20, the oldest member. And DeMarcus Maurice Smith, 17, Matthews' boyfriend. All 4 had severed ties with their families, living homeless with nowhere to turn, and according to later testimony, they were looking for trouble. One statement by Laura Taylor recorded in the case files revealed something about the gang's mindset. "Let's get some drama in our lives." That wasn't just the idle talk of a bored teenager, but a haunting declaration of what was about to happen. Part 2. Christmas Eve, the first victim. On December 24, 1992, Christmas Eve, 3 members, Keene, Taylor, and Matthews, began executing their first plan, robbing a man that Taylor thought would pay them for sex. The chosen target was Joseph Wilkerson, 34, a worker at the General Motors plant, and also an acquaintance of Taylor. Wilkerson had no idea that the fun invitation from Taylor and her friends was a death trap. The group met Wilkerson under the pretext of wanting to have an orgy, group sex with him. After having a few drinks, all 4 went into Wilkerson's bedroom on Prescott Avenue, where the real tragedy began. As soon as they entered the room, Keene pulled out a gun and threatened him, and together with his accomplices, they tied Wilkerson tightly to the bed with electrical cords. The 2 girls ransacked the entire house looking for valuables, while Keene kept watch over the immobilized victim on the bed. While searching, they found a .32 caliber Derringer pistol, and Keene used that very gun to finish off Wilkerson. He shot the victim in the chest, using blankets to cover the body and muffle the gunshot. Then Taylor also fired another shot into Wilkerson's head to make sure he was completely dead. Wilkerson's body was left right there on that bed, and for the next 3 days, they lived in the house like owners, eating the victim's food, driving his car, and planning their next crimes. Part. Danita Gillette, the second victim. Also on Christmas Eve, after killing Wilkerson, Taylor, Keene, and Smith, all 3 armed with guns, walked around the area and happened upon Danita Gillette, an 18-year-old girl making a phone call at a public payphone on Neal Avenue. No clear reason was given in the case files, other than the gang wanting to steal the girl's shoes and jacket. Smith and Keene drew their guns, forcing Gullette to take off her shoes on their command. After stealing the shoes and jacket, both fired their guns and killed Gullette on the spot, then took the victim's belongings and left as if nothing had happened. When they returned to the apartment, Taylor was wearing Gullette's jacket, and Smith was carrying the victim's shoes. Also that night, a third victim named Jeffrey Wright was attacked by the gang and hit with 4 bullets, but he fortunately survived. However, Gullette's death left a horrifying mark on the Dayton community, a young girl murdered simply for standing and making a phone call on Christmas Eve. Samoan War, Part 4. Richmond Maddox, December 25th. By December 25th, the official Christmas day, the gang continued their actions. This time, the victim was Richmond Maddox, 19, Laura Taylor's ex-boyfriend. Taylor lured Maddox away from his parents' home and into his car, while Keene, Smith, and Matthews drove behind them. When Maddox realized there was a car following him, he became suspicious and sped up, but it was too late. Right there in the car, while Maddox was driving, Taylor pulled out the Derringer pistol, aimed it at his right temple, and pulled the trigger. A single shot went through Maddox's head, killing him instantly on Benton Avenue. Taylor managed to escape the car before it lost control and crashed into the roadside, then rejoined her accomplices as if nothing had happened. Part 5. Sarah Abraham. The mother at the grocery store. Early morning on December 26, 1992, Boxing Day, the gang decided to carry out a store robbery. The target was the short-stop mini-mart grocery store, where Sarah Abraham, 38, a mother working the holiday weekend shift to help her family's business. Taylor was sent to scout ahead, checking the number of people inside the store, then reporting back to Keene and Smith. The two went into the store with guns, threatening Abraham at gunpoint to open the cash register and hand over all the money. Abraham complied and gave Keene $40, all the money in the register at that time. But instead of leaving, Keene shot Abraham in the head, while Smith simultaneously fired at customer Jones Pettis, who was hit in the abdomen but survived, and another man named Thompson, who wasn't hurt because the bullet missed. Abraham was taken to the hospital and passed away 5 days later on December 31st, 1992, making her the 5th victim of this killing spree. Part 6. Wendy Cottrell and Marvin Washington, silencing witnesses. Also on December 26th, the gang carried out their most brutal act, killing 2 of their own friends to silence witnesses. Wendy Cottrell, 16, and Marvin Washington, 18, were 2 people who had been acquainted with the Downtown Posse, but Keene and his accomplices feared that both would report them to the police about what they had done. After picking up Cottrell and Washington in their car, the gang drove to a city-owned gravel pit on Richley Avenue. There, they forced both of them out of the car at gunpoint, and despite Cottrell and Washington pleading and insisting they had no intention of snitching, Keene still shot and killed Cottrell, while Smith killed Washington. These 2 bodies were only discovered after Laura Taylor confessed to a minister who visited her in jail. That's when police learned that the number of victims wasn't 4, as initially thought, but 6. Part 7. Arrest and Interrogation. On the afternoon of December 26, 1992, all 4 members of the Downtown Posse were arrested at 725 Cumler Avenue after police spotted their suspicious behavior. Initially, Dayton homicide detectives didn't realize that all these cases were connected. But during interrogation, Marvallous Keene confessed to the entire crime spree. After their arrest, Keene and Matthews, the 2 adults, were charged in Dayton Municipal Court with aggravated murder and aggravated robbery, with bail set at $5 million cash for each. Montgomery County Prosecutor Matthias Heck, Jr. announced he would seek the death penalty for both Keene and Matthews, as under Ohio state law, aggravated murder carries either the death penalty or life imprisonment. As for DeMarcus Smith and Laura Taylor, because they were still minors at the time of the crimes, they were tried in Montgomery County Juvenile Court and held without bail. Heck requested permission to try both Smith and Taylor as adults, which could lead to sentences ranging from 25 years to life imprisonment. Because both were under 18 when they committed the crimes, the death penalty couldn't be applied in their cases. In May 1993, a judge confirmed that both Smith and Taylor would be tried as adults, after the court concluded that neither could be rehabilitated in the juvenile justice system. Part 2: The Trial and Sentencing. The trial of Marvallous Keene took place before a 3-judge panel, presided over by Montgomery County Common, Pleas Judge Robert Brown. On October 12, 1993, when Keene was 20 years old, the panel found Keene guilty on all 20 counts, including aggravated murder, aggravated burglary, attempted murder, kidnapping, burglary, and aggravated robbery. The sentencing hearing took place from October 25 to October 27, 1993. On October 28, 1993, the 3 judges decided to impose the death penalty for each murder count, but postponed the formal sentencing to a later date. Before the court's decision, Keene cried and tried to plead for mercy by revealing that his brother had died in a shooting in 1991, and his broken relationship with his father had left him emotionally disturbed. But the court still decided to maintain the death sentence. On December 10, 1993, Keene was formally sentenced to death at the hearing. Additionally, Keene was sentenced to consecutive prison terms of 121 to 293 years for the lesser charges. The judicial panel found that the aggravating circumstances in Keene's case far outweighed the mitigating factors, and the application of 5 death sentences was entirely justified. Montgomery County Assistant Prosecutor Angela Ferdman described Keene's death sentence as a just sentence and symbolic of the justice system's commitment to protecting society. Meanwhile, Laura Taylor, DeMarcus Smith, and Heather Matthews all received life sentences. In a prison interview in 2000, Heather Matthews explained her reason for participating in the crime spree. "I wanted to be like them. I wanted to do what they were doing." Part 9: 17 Years of Appeals. Keene's execution. After being sentenced to death, Marvallous Keene went through 17 years of continuous appeals. During this time, Keene's attorneys tried to argue that Heather Matthews, who also played a significant role in the murders, only received a life sentence, while Keene faced the death penalty, which demonstrated unfairness. However, the 6th District Court of Appeals rejected this argument, determining that the difference between Keene and Matthews lay in the fact that Matthews didn't directly pull the trigger on the victims, while Keene was the person who carried out most of the murders, and the evidence proving Matthews's direct role in the cases was much weaker compared to Keene's prominent role. Finally, the parole board voted unanimously 7-0 to recommend that the governor deny clemency for Keene. The board found that Keene had killed the victims in a cold and calculated manner that didn't warrant mercy. Ohio Governor Ted Strickland also agreed with the board's findings and declined to grant clemency to Keene 1 week before his execution. On July 21, 2009, at Southern Ohio Correctional Facility, Marvallous Matthew Keene, now 36 years old, was executed by lethal injection. Keene became the 1,000th death row inmate in the United States, executed by lethal injection since 1976. Conclusion: a scar that never fades. The 1992 Dayton Christmas massacre left an unhealable scar in the heart of the Dayton, Ohio community and became the worst crime spree in the city's history. 6 innocent people had their lives taken simply because 4 teenagers wanted to create some drama for their lives, a reason so absurd it's hard to believe. Joseph Wilkerson, Danita Gillette, Richmond Maddox, Sarah Abraham, Wendy Cottrell, and Marvin Washington. These names are forever remembered not as statistics, but as real people with families, futures, and the right to live. They were factory workers, young students, mothers working during the holidays, friends, all taken away during the 3 most horrifying days of the Christmas season. And the question remains, how could 4 teenagers, people who were themselves once victims of broken families and an indifferent society, become such cold-blooded killers? Was it a failure of the system, of families, or of those individuals themselves when they chose the path of crime? For nearly 3 decades since the case, the people of Dayton have never forgotten those 3 days. Each Christmas season that comes around, they remember those who were lost and remind the next generation of a painful lesson, that evil doesn't always come from distant monsters, but sometimes it lies within young people seeking fun in the most insane way possible. If you're following the case files and want to learn more about other real cases, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming episodes. We believe that looking back at cases like this isn't just to satisfy curiosity, but also to learn lessons about the brutality of crime and the value of justice. Stay safe, and remember, the truth is always stranger than fiction.